Designing NPCs, designing encounters, designing your campaign, all of this burden sits upon you to create these amazing things, and yet it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. It should be easy, simple, and possibly something that you do on the fly. And here is how I do it. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Be a Great GM. My name is Guy, and today we look at the art of campaign design. And by campaign design, I mean the elements that go into that. I mean NPCs, encounters, adventures, the campaign itself. That is what I'm looking at in terms of that space. Okay? And we're looking at it in the context of how do we stop doing all of the work and watch as the system we put in place does the work for us. Now, this is the last video in this series where we're talking about unlocking the space, about watching and letting the space tell us what to do. So hopefully you've been on the journey with me. You've checked out the last 3 videos that I've done, 3 videos, I think it is. And this is now going to cement it all into space. Now, these are overview videos. These are broad term videos. And they come from all of the videos on this YouTube channel, and they have all been compacted into my book, The Practical Guide to Becoming a Great GM. And this book is on Kickstarter at the moment. And I have to say, it's been amazing so far. And the book is all of the channel condensed into a single idea. And that single idea is about taking the burden of being the GM off of your shoulders and instead replacing it with the joy and exhilaration of exploring your world. So we've looked at your campaign in terms of your world space. We've looked at yourself and trying to understand yourself so that you can empower yourself better. And now we look at the part which arguably is the most demanding: designing of the NPCs, the designing of the encounters, looking at monsters, and looking at the actual plot itself. And I've said in videos before, and I'm going to say it again, all of these things are subject to death. That's the important thing to bear in mind. Everything that you create is most likely going to die. And if it doesn't die, if it is immortal, then you haven't grasped the concept of the game. Everything in your game should exactly last for as long as the PCs need it, and once they don't need it, it should go away. So that's I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me just backpedal a little bit. Now, I'm going to ask you straight up, hit that subscribe button and hit that like button. Why? It costs you nothing. And yet it makes me understand and realize that what I'm doing here actually makes sense. It helps you in some way. It has meaning. Because otherwise it's like, well, yeah, who am I talking to? I know I'm talking to you because you're watching this video right now. And I really appreciate that. So just take that little extra step. Okay, so we need to think about this. What can we do on the fly versus what do we need to prepare? Some of the things that we need to prepare, I would say, most importantly, are maps. Maps are going to help us. Maps give us so much information, so much detail, that really I don't understand why the Dungeon Master's Guide is not just maps. And it's like, this map should inspire you to do all of this stuff. This map should inspire you to do all of that stuff. Forget the writing. So, to make great maps, dungeonfog.com. You know them. I love them. I use them every week. Dungeonfog.com. Use the code GREATGM to get a discount on a subscription with them. Not that you need that. You can actually use it without a subscription. Dungeon Fog is the ultimate battle map maker. It makes the most beautiful maps, and the company is working on a big cartography program called Deos. It's absolutely mind-blowing what you can already do with the alpha that they're still in. Go and check them out. They are amazing. Dungeon Fog, I love all of you there. You guys are absolutely amazing. So maps are fundamental. So a good map is going to help you immensely. I cannot emphasize that enough. As a matter of fact, if I'm running a campaign, the only thing I really plan is the map. Everything else I do on the fly. I don't need to stress about it. So here is how I do it. Okay, so NPCs. NPCs I have spoken about at length on this channel, and recently I did a thing on NPC AI. The idea is that everything we create is going to tell us what it wants to do, rather than us trying to figure out what it's going to do. So with NPCs, you have your NPC OGAS system. That's the system I came up with: occupation, goal, attitude, and stake. And then they have other layers underneath that. Again, I've done videos on this, so I'm not going to go too much on this particular video. The NPC needs to run themselves, because if you're running them, it's such a burden, it's such a stress. Using the OGAS system, you are constraining yourself to this idea that the NPC, they have their goal, they have their attitude, and they have their occupation, so they know what they're doing. They're going to be going about doing that when the PCs suddenly arrive. Now, you also know from last week's video that they need to be reactive to what the PCs have been doing, and they need to live in their world. With that constraint, you have everything you possibly need to be able to run that NPC. What that means is, now when you are building encounters, your encounters also shouldn't just be these random nameless monsters that the PCs have to fight. Those monsters also live in the world. They hear things. Ogres don't just live in isolation. Orcs don't not read the news. Okay, maybe they eat the news, but you get the point. Traders will wander through, they'll hear rumors, they'll experience things. If a volcano blows up, they will see that happening. So they also need to be reactive. Forget all of the additional information, the stats and all that kind of stuff. That you only need to worry about when the players actually engage with the NPCs. Do you need to have it all worked out beforehand? No, we live in the digital age. All you need to do is open up one of several hundred resource pages that will have thousands of NPC stat blocks ready for you. That's not the part you need to worry about. The part you need to worry about is making that NPC feel as if they are real, and you do that by listening to what their OGAS is telling you and then putting it into action, and as well as putting into action the world space and putting into action your personal space. Do you see how those spheres are starting to align so that you know, oh, I'm this type of GM, this is my world space that I've created, and here's the NPC who just is in alignment with all of those things. The NPC, there's very little for you to choose, because you're taking components from all of those steps, combining them around the OGAS, and you're going, well, this NPC blacksmith has to respond in a certain way, because that's how they would respond in that situation. And we know all of the parameters. We know the important parameters. The stat blocks and those kind of things, those are important to combat. But that's one aspect out of an entire experience. Our encounters also need to conform to a particular reason. Why are we having this encounter? If it's a random encounter, the monsters in that encounter, they have to have their OGAS, because if they don't, then they're literally just blank pieces of board that you are writing numbers on for the characters to have to beat down and smash through. It doesn't make sense. They need to fulfill their OGAS. If they don't, they're empty. So the OGAS is going to allow you to have an encounter where the goblins are, one of them is a tactician, so they're going to have a more interesting combat. The other ones are not. But the other ones don't care if they kill the player characters or if they just get to rob from them. So they might not actually do physical damage, they might just pick pockets a lot and then run away. Because you can't spend stuff when you're dead. The goblins know this, so should you. But sometimes you forget and the goblins just fight to the death. So when we apply OGAS to our encounters, suddenly our encounters are writing themselves. We know that this is a smart, intelligent wizard. They're not going to fall for a simple trap that the players have made. They're going to connivingly have done something else. Or maybe they will fall for the trap because they're not that smart. What else? What else do we need to look at? Well, we need to look at our plot. And our plot, I have always on this channel, and it has been something that I admit I thought was right. It's wrong. I have always created plots, whether it's the 1-to-1 method or the 5-step method, and I have made videos on both of those. Either one of those, I have always played them out as if those are the rules, as if that is the only outcome. And when I get given pre-written adventures, I look at those adventures and I go, this is someone's master plan. It is not the game. The game involves the players interacting with all of these different elements and choosing to do what they want to do. So whose game is this then? What is the point of creating all of these conniving plots, all of these things? Well, that is usually the enemy. That is usually the bad guy who has created this idea to take over the planet. Or it's the flood, and the flood is going to wash through everything, and it is the actions of the king, the hero, who is trying to adjust this, and we need to see if they're going to succeed or not. But it is still someone's plan. And once you realize that it is someone's plan, it is not your plan. It is not the GM's great story that their players are going to run through. It is someone's plan. What that means is you should realize that that someone has to react when their plan starts to change, not you. You as the GM should not be going, oh, my players, they just haven't got to finding where the murderer has hidden the weapon because they missed the clue. What does that have to do with you? The murderer hid the weapon. The people investigating it didn't find it. Does that change the murderer's plan of getting away with murder? No, it doesn't. As a matter of fact, that murderer might now get cocky and send a note saying, well, you didn't find the murder weapon, did you? So clearly there was no murder. Or something along those lines. Do you see the fundamental change that happened? The plot reacted to what the players did or didn't do. And instead of panicking, going, oh, I've got to get them to find that murder weapon, you go, no. The NPC, what is the NPC's OGAS? What is their AI telling me? They are now going to get cocky. Or maybe they're not. Maybe they're just going to get quiet and kill again because they got away with it the first time. None of this was in your plan because your plan shouldn't exist. You are there reacting and providing outcomes for things that the player characters are doing. You are not there to direct what the player characters should do. As a result, the only way that you should be responding to player characters' actions is by looking at the NPCs in the world space around them and looking at whether they are directly affected by the player characters or not, and then deciding how they will react to that environment. Now, you don't have to look at every single NPC in the village. You simply look at the ones that have the greatest stake in that situation and decide how they will act. And you understand how they will act because you have set up their OGAS on the fly because you didn't have it planned out beforehand. But on the fly, you go, well, the mayor is, this is his OGAS. He's the mayor. His goal is to retain power at all costs, and his attitude is slightly snobbish, and his stake is moderately high because if he loses his mayoral status, he will then get kicked out of the mayor's house, and he will have to live on the streets. It took me a few seconds to come up with that. That's as far as I need to go because now I know exactly how he's going to respond. If the player characters do anything that threatens his position as mayor, he will clamp down on them as hard as he can. He will get the sheriff to come up with false reasons. He will get them expelled. He will get them thrown away. He will hire assassins to get rid of them. He won't do it himself because his stakes are only moderately high, but he will happily use his power, his authority, his occupation to make it happen that they go away. If the player characters are making him look good, he's going to keep them around. He's going to lavish rewards upon them. He's going to throw banquets in their honor. He will make sure that they remain in his good books and he remains in their good books because they're helping his campaign. They are saying to the people, you are a great mayor. Look, you brought these heroes in. Yes, I did. I'm brilliant. Keep me in my house for as long as I possibly can. OGAS helps and changes everything around that. So when you realize that your plot is not yours, it is somebody else's, and you understand how that else person works, you're golden. You never again have to stress about the players not sticking to plot. It is literally, that's the point. You don't want them to, because then you are exploring your world. You are now running a game where you have no idea what the outcome is. How exciting is that? How dramatic and dynamic and living and breathing is that space? Oh my goodness, this is now you freed up. You step back and you go, I've got plots for these monsters. I've got plots for my villains. I've got my world space. I've got my general idea. I know what kind of games I like to run. This is my mind. This is my game style. Players, come and play in my world, because together we're going to explore these stories that none of us know what is going to happen. We don't know where it's going to go. We're just going to have fun and we're going to explore it. And that's how you role play. Everything else is just on the top mechanics, which you can now access instantaneously on the internet. So there, in 4 videos, is my grand plan on how to be a great GM. And I hope that parts of these videos have gone, oh, that could work. That could actually work. You now have to have the courage to step back and start applying it and start following it and start putting it into practice and letting go and going, it's not my fault. It's not my problem. I'm just here playing the game along with you. My game's slightly different from yours, but that doesn't matter. We're all in this together. So that's it from me this week. All I have to say is a massive thank you to my Patreons, a massive thank you to you for watching all the way through to the end, a reminder that the Kickstarter is winding down now for the practical guide to becoming a great GM, which contains all of this information in this book that I've spoken about, and it's in depth with exercises, with tasks for you, and a reminder that Dungeon Fog sponsored today's video and that their map making software is absolutely mind-blowing and is the only real step you need to take when designing adventures in the future. That's it from me. Thank you. Goodbye. Happy gaming.